There we go. Hey guys, I reloaded the page and that seemed to work. So welcome everybody. It's Roy here, all things Roy. We're going to start a 6-week course on activating the third eye. So that's pretty much 9 hours. It's going to be 9 hours of discussion, practice, bit of storytelling, and what I want to get across to you is how do you have a direct experience of your third eye? What is it? How does it work? How do you stay attuned to it in yourself? So yeah, let's just get going. So first thing I'd like to talk about is what are the chakras, just so everybody gets where I'm coming from. So the chakras are different energy points in the body. So if you think about your brain stem, then your central nervous system all the way through your body, and through each vertebrae there's nerves that come out, nerve threads that come out between your vertebrae. They spread out, and you have all these nerve endings in your body. And then you have nerve plexus. You have different points in your body where you've got gatherings of nerve plexus, where you got a lot of nerve endings together. And that's at a physical level. At an energetic level, they hold a particular energy. And then at a consciousness level, they hold a particular consciousness. So if you think about it, you've got your consciousness in your brain. You use your brain, your central nervous system to attune. So all your nerve endings are an aspect of your consciousness. It's how we view and tune into reality itself. So there you go. So if you think about it, is the chakras, it's like attuning to them. It's like a frequency. When you attune to the frequency, is then you're constantly hitting a particular truth. So what do I mean by that? Is each chakra holds a personal truth and a universal truth. And my simple definition of a truth is something that's constant. There's no start and there's no end. It's just eternal. It's constant in its nature. And then that's a truth. That's what I'm describing as a truth. Within that, we have our personal experience of it, and then we have our universal experience of it. And as we attune to the chakras, we're attuning to those truths. Okay, so let me now give you an example. Because a lot of times they can seem abstract, and they're multi-dimensional in nature, so they permeate everything like a truth. A truth is a truth is a truth. A truth is true. A truth is true everywhere. So it's multi-dimensional. So they can sound very abstract or obscure, and that's not really beneficial. It's not helpful. So let's strip that truth down to some practical, tangible understandings that we can all get a sense of, and then we'll work from there, yeah? Okay, so I'm going to talk about the root chakra first. The one at the base is when you physically center yourself, and I'll talk through this later on. So one of the things we've got to talk through, physical centering, when you energetically center yourself, when you mentally center yourself. And what that means is that you're putting yourself in one place and you're connecting into that one place. So you're coming into your center, you're coming into your center of gravity in your body, in your breath, in your mind, is you're centering yourself. When you do that with awareness, you are centering yourself in the present moment. It allows you to attune to the present moment. Now, the truth of the root chakra is the present moment itself. That is the truth of the root. You root yourself into the moment, is you come with awareness into the moment. So now I'll ask you a question, and this question will give you a very clear understanding of the personal truth of the root. Who are you when you are continuously present? Who are you when you are continuously present? And that is your personal truth. So when you attune yourself to the moment and you continuously let yourself flow in that moment, so you're centered in yourself, you're in your center of gravity, which allows you to stay present and fluid, is your ability to be fluid in your center physically, energetically, emotionally, and mentally, is that allows you to attune to that spontaneous moment. And that spontaneous moment, that's where you find your authenticity. And the more you come into that, the more you're coming into, I am in the moment. You're finding your personal truth. You're attuning to your personal truth. So who are you when you are continuously present? And then the more of yourself starts to come into the moment, the moment begins to feel greater. You begin to feel greater in it. You're becoming more well-rounded in yourself as more and more of yourself eases into it. And at one point, you'll fill the moment so much, and coming into the moment is the awakening. You awaken to the moment. So when you come enough into the moment, when you spend enough time in the moment itself, and you're filling the moment, and your life is full of the moment itself, and the moment is just everywhere, is you'll go from the awakening, and then you'll have a realization. You'll be, I'm not just in the moment, but I am the moment itself. When that person has that realization, that's the universal truth. They're experiencing the boundlessness of the moment, and they're experiencing their consciousness within it in that boundless state. So there's the personal truth, and then the universal truth. And I could talk about this all day long, and I could tell you exactly what it is and how great it is it only really matters when you have a direct experience. You need to have a direct experience of that, so that you know you're having the experience, and that you need to have measurement. You need to be able to measure that experience, so that you have something to measure off, that you can be sure that you're actually having that experience. So one of the things you need is your third eye. Is you need your consciousness to awaken. You need it. You need to come into a particular experience, which I'm going to talk about now. I'm describing the root chakra first, because it's one that everybody can follow pretty easily and go, yeah. Who am I when I'm in the moment? That's your personal truth. And move into that and let yourself expand into it, and then you realize I'm the moment itself. Okay, so everybody gets that. It's like the small eye and the big eye of oneself. Yeah. So now I'm not going to go through all the chakras, because I'll spend the whole 90 minutes just doing that. And no doubt we'll do a 6-week course on all of them along the way. So this one, the third eye, where do I start? I'll start this way. I'll give you the practical steps first. Now, don't worry if you don't understand it all, or I'm saying so much that you can't hold it all together. Don't worry about it. Go with the story as I'm telling it. So if you understand the thing I'm saying in the moment that I'm saying it, great. You don't have to remember, put it all together, because we've 9 hours and you're going to see me talk around this over and over and over, and I'll just keep breaking it down. You'll see me build it back up, and then you'll see me layer it together, and I'll break things down, I'll build it back up, I'll layer it together, and I'll just keep going through that. And what happens is that over a while, things start to come together for you. And it's like jigsaw pieces. Is you've got this piece, and you got this piece, and then you got this piece, and then I got this piece. And you just start putting them together. And as you're putting them together, you're coming into your own understanding of it, your clarity of it, your experience of it. So don't get stressed out about he's saying a lot, I can't follow it all. Is follow it as I'm saying it. At the end of each session, there are going to be at least 2 or 3 things that jumped out of your mind that really struck you, that really resonated with you. They're the things I want you to chew over. They're the things I want you to play around with in your mind and test them, explore them, and just start to make sense of them. Because as you do that, you'll start to see how they fit together, and you start to see how other things fit together, and you're just getting it going. There's one other thing that you need to take from today's session. At least one thing that you can take away and you go, I get that, and I also get how to apply it. I understand how to practically apply it. I know what I have to do with this to activate it. I want you to take that off and start playing around with that and start exploring that practical aspect of it, and let that just come to life a little bit in you. And then, you're playing around with the other bits that you understand, and you've got a little practical thing to do, and it's like a playpen. You're just playing and having fun. Don't take it too serious. If things come up that are serious for you, is there's nothing that you need to do right now. You're just understanding, you're information gathering, you're exploring. So if serious things come up for you, is just bookmark them, let them know, let yourself know that they're there, and that there's something that you can explore later on. If there's anything particular serious that you'd like to have a chat or bounce off somebody, send me a message, give me a call, and I'll happily chat away with you. Yeah. Okay. So now the third eye. I'm going to talk you through the steps. If we physically center ourselves, we're coming into that place within ourselves where we're in one place, and that allows us to calm down and concentrate, as opposed to if the body's all bunched and tight, is the body's pulling in different directions. It's very hard to focus when there's too much going on. So we center ourselves. And I'm going to bring you into a bit of breath awareness. And what we'll do is we'll begin to even out the breath. And in that, we're going to begin to energetically center. So when you open up your breath and you come to the pause at the end of your exhale, when you slow your exhale down and you come to the pause at the end of your exhale, you're going to find it very calming. So we're emotionally, energetically centering ourselves, coming into one place and just settling into ourselves. And then what we're going to do is we're going to mentally center. And the simple way to describe that, and I've explained a lot of other videos, so I'll give you a quick example here, and we'll talk through it later on. Your room you're in is your mind. This is my room. That picture there is my mind screen. So pick a wall or a window where you are. That's your mind screen. That's where your thoughts are. You're not your thoughts, so you can detach from your thoughts. You can come away from your thoughts. Then you notice the room itself. That's the mind field. That's like the physical ground, but at a mental level. And that mind field is when you hear people talk about opening your mind, is you're detaching from the thoughts. Now you're opening your mind. You spend long enough in the mind field and you realize there's a part of yourself that's not thought, but awareness itself. So through your senses, it's the watcher, it's the listener, it's the feeler, is that part of yourself that's awareness, but not thought. And that's you mentally centering. Okay, so you're physically centering, energetically centering, and mentally centering. Now this is where we start to get more moving towards activating the third eye. Within that watcher, within the watcher within yourself, that's your awareness. Within that watcher, that awareness, you're going to experience a presence, a sense of presence. Okay? So that sense of presence is your consciousness. That's not just awareness, it's your sense of presence within it. It's your consciousness itself. Now that's the intuitive part of us. It's not just thought, it's not just awareness, it's consciousness itself. It's our intuition. And that's the part that we need to activate for the third eye. We need to awaken that aspect of ourselves, to attune to it. Okay? So how do you do that? How do you come into that consciousness itself? Because what we're looking to do here with the third eye is to activate our consciousness, is to awaken our consciousness so that we know that we know. Okay? We know that we know. Okay. That's what we're looking to do. And there's loads more that I could tell you, but that's a basic practical pathway to it. Okay, so now I want to tell you a story, and I'm going to tell you the story of awakening the third eye. There's like an arc, a story arc. I don't know how good all stories, all TV series, all movies, every book that's written. There's an arc, there's a story arc. And there are story arcs in our lives that we are all involved in. Everybody is involved in this arc. So within the third eye, there's an arc story about the awakening of the third eye. So what is that story? Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. Now you gotta take on board, you are going through this experience. Whether you realize it or not, what I'm gonna tell you, you're going through this experience. And you are somewhere on the story of this arc. Somewhere on this arc is you. You're in this story. Okay, so see how you get on with it, and then we'll work with that. Okay. So we're all born, and when we're born, the child is born at an instinctual level. So the child is innately themselves, instinctually themselves. It's like they're unfiltered. It's one of the reasons why we're so protective of them. Is just they're so vulnerable. But they're so vulnerable, not just because they're physically, they don't have the wherewithal, or mentally they don't have the wherewithal, is literally they are just so open to the world. They're unfiltered, if that makes sense. They haven't learned the ways of the world yet. So all the senses are just open in them. And they are instinctually present. So the child is very, very present when it's very young. It's one of the things we're looking at the child looks back at us and we're just fascinated because the child is just looking. And then you go, that child's looking into me. And the reason why the child's looking into you is because the child is so open in themselves that their gaze is just so clear. Okay? And it's at an instinctual level. So the child isn't aware, it doesn't have self-awareness. But at an instinctual level is all the senses are activated, and the child is very present. At an instinctual level is there's no right or wrong. Does that make sense? There's no right or there's no timing, so to speak. The child doesn't look at its watch and say, "I'll be hungry in half an hour." Now, the child's either hungry or not hungry. You know, it's just at that visceral, instinctual level. Everybody get that? Okay. So. And I would also say the child is born complete. The child is born complete. And then there's the expression of that completeness in their life. It's the expression of their potential. So we'll always hear people talking about people achieving their full potential. We'll talk about that as part of it. What does that mean? Where does that state of potential, where does it reside? What is that truly that people talk about? And how are children in the completeness of that? How is that? That sounds a little bit unreal. It's true. We'll talk about it later. So as the child develops, you get into the terrible twos. So what are the terrible twos? The terrible twos are when me arrives. Okay? What me thinks is brilliant. Me. Anything me wants to do, me does. And there's this overpowering sense of rightness to me because it's whatever me decides is so powerful for me that me is nearly invincible. It doesn't know any better. And the reason why it's terrible twos is when you stop me from running out on the road, me has a fit. Me goes all mad because while I have a sense of me, I don't have the intellectual wherewithal to communicate what me wants. Me just wants it. So now it's the instinctual self is getting a sense of themselves, and it comes through me. So the terrible twos is why me has a fit, okay? It's a very important part of a child's development, how you deal with me. Because if me learns how to control at that age, you're going to be struggling for the rest of your life with that me, so there's how do you get that me working in the family unit and working for themselves, is rather than just being in that visceral me. So this is a very important part of a child's development. But you get the idea. So now it rolls on a few years and child begins to gain an intellect. And an intellect gives the child choices. That's what an intellect does, is an intellect goes, well, I got this choice and I could do this and I could do that and this and that and all these choices. And this is where the child can begin to experience a sense of separation and a loss of their innocence. How does that happen? At an instinctual level, is the child stays instinctually connected to themselves. There's no right or wrong, it just is. It just is, and the child's following the is in themselves. When we gain an intellect, is I have more choices. So my instinctual choice would be my thumb, but I have all these other choices. If I start making choices that, let's say I pick my little finger, if I start making choices that are taking me away from my innate instinctual self, is what happens then is we begin to experience the separation of that. Is the child is feeling the separation from their innate self, their instinctual self, and the rightness of that, and they're moving into developing an intellectual self, a reasoning self. Everybody understand? And that separation is the first hurt. That's the first real hurt, because pain is the experience of separation. You break skin, you break a bone. Emotionally, somebody you love tells you they don't love you anymore. Intellectually, somebody that you respect tells you they think you're stupid. It's the hurt, it's the experience of separation. That's the first hurt. Is that experience of separation from oneself. Okay, so now there's the innate self, and then there's the intellect pulling us away, and that hurt is the hurt of innocence. Is innocence feels as if it's being lost. We're losing our innocence. Okay, and it's a sore one. Is as the intellect takes over more, is what happens is that when we experience the disconnection from our instinctual self, that hurts, and then we need to protect ourselves. So what we do is we create a buffer, and that buffer we put around ourselves is our personality. So we have our innate character, our natural sense of self, and then we have a personality which is still ourselves, but in separation, in hurt, in suffering, and we put a buffer around ourselves to protect ourselves. And we move into the imbalance of right or wrong, or good or bad, where when it's our instinctual self, there is no right or wrong, there just is. When we move into the hurt self, now we're in the right or wrong, the positive or the negative. And we get lost in that battle of, well, I like this part of myself, I don't like that part of myself. And we start to pull ourselves further and further apart. And the intellect and the ego begins to develop more. The personality begins to establish itself. Okay. Now, when the different chakras, is each one of those is engaged, and it can be working for us, or it can be working, we can have it working against us. Everybody has at least one or two chakras that they stay very much connected to. And that's what they rely on. They lean on that in their strengths. And then there's others that can be disconnected. So let me give you examples of that. Remember now, you don't need to remember everything I'm saying. You just need to follow the story as I'm telling you. And if you understand the bit I'm saying, you're winning. So Do you know somebody who just lives from the heart? They're just such a heart person, and everybody knows it. They know it's just obvious, and that person has stayed very connected to their heart. And they reside there. So we place ourselves. It's like in our posture. Is people can lean on different parts of the body more than others. Does that make sense? So some of our body is stronger than others, and we work those more. So that person's in their heart more. Now that same person might be very ungrounded. Is they're not very secure in themselves? Is they're collapsing a lot? Or they might be very ungrounded themselves. Their root chakra is not very stable because they're in the battle of that ground. They feel disconnected from their ground, but they very much live in the heart. And you see the different play of it in people. The solar plexus is about our personal power, our vitality, but also our personal power. If that gets inverted, if you work that against yourself, it feels a disempowerment. There's a great sense of lack in it. And we could be fighting in the lack in ourselves. Or you could have another person who's just got the constitution of an ox. They're just, their solar plexus is just a powerhouse, because they've stayed connected in it. So different ones. Some people have the gift of the gab. Some people are just comes out of them. Where another person is, they choke trying to get the words out. They really struggle with it. When they do speak, they just seem to be off target. They know what they want to say. They just seem to say it in a way that the communication isn't heard the way they meant it. It's heard wrong. So what they want to say, what they think they're saying, and then what they're saying can be very different things. So different chakras, everybody has at least one or two that they're very attuned to. Normally some, then there's a reasonable calmness in them, but then there can be one or two that can be in the war zone, that the real battles go on within ourselves. So you get the idea. So that this all establishes itself as we move from the terrible twos, the me, into the I can now reason. I can now choose my choices. So you'll notice that kids, when they get around 5 or 6, is they get very clever. They get far more clever, and that's when kids start to do the deals. Well, can I do this? And if I did this, and would you do that? And so they're very much in the barter of things. It's because they're learning that they have choices, and they begin to work those choices. So now the intellect is developing. Okay, so now I'm going to go on a little bit further. And we'll talk about life cycles again. We go through different life cycles, and each life cycle is directly related to a chakra. So the first chakra is very much about the root chakra. It's coming into this life, it's coming into this body, it's coming into this energetic mental body, it's coming into this character within oneself, this natural character, and getting a grounding in it, in this life, in this world, in this experience, in your family, in your home, in your area. There's just that grounding and coming into it. And very much how that happens for a person, they'll either come into that grounding and find a security, or if they don't feel so secure, they're in the struggle of it, and then they're in the struggle of that until they figure it out. Okay? Until they find consciously where their ground is, where their place of rest is. Does that make sense? Is coming to that home within themselves, physically, emotionally, mentally, where they go, this is my home, this is where I reside, this is where I feel secure. It's my security, as opposed to looking for it off the environment or other people. And there's that journey that most likely some of you are on. Some of you figured that one out. Remember the arc? So there's an arc for all of them. So now each life cycle, there's lessons to learn. We either learn them or we're in the struggle of them and they're yet to be learned. Like the second life cycle is very much about creativity. Look how creative kids get, 7, 8 years of age. They're making up their own worlds. They're telling their own stories. They're able to devise plots and plans and storylines, and they start to play out what they see in front of them. And very much the sacral chakra, the aliveness is coming through, their life force and their ability to direct that life force. Now, if a child learns how to come into their life force, center themselves in it, and begin to channel it in constructive ways, we're winning. We've got a very creative child who's very much within themselves and enjoying the experience of their own life. If there's a challenge in that, the child can be in the struggle of life, and if life is very difficult, the child may learn that rather than living, they learn how to survive. They're in the struggle of the survival of life rather than the living, and they're playing out that survival mode. And again, it can be at a physical level, it can be at an emotional level, it can be at a mental level, it can be in the family, it can be in the environment, whatever's going on. Is that experience for them again, it's setting them up to either help them learn it when it kicks in at that age, or it's setting them up for the longer form of learning, the harder way of learning, where the knocks, the suffering, the hurt in it has to intensify before they're pushed to figure it out. Now, this is where I'm going with this story. It's rolling on. The intellect is rolling on. It's rolling on. We're getting older. If a person ends up fighting too many battles within themselves, trying to balance all the balls within themselves, and it just becomes too much, balance all the balls in their life and all the commitments they've made. And if it all starts to get too much, at one point the person's going to say something doesn't feel right, something's not right, and they're going to know that they've lost something. And they may know what it is they've lost, or they may not, but just something is not right. And they know they have to go looking for it. And then the person goes searching. So now the intellect, the I, the ego of the I realizes something is missing. This is just way too much. I can't take this. I've got to find a better way. So they go looking for something. So now this is the point of this story, the arc, the awakening of the third eye. The intellect realizes it has to go looking for something. So now the searcher kicks in. Traditionally in yogic terms, they're called the searcher. And the searcher is searching. Searching around. What am I looking for? And then they're brought into the yoga, do a bit of centering, do a bit of limbering, open themselves up, the strengthening, concentrate their mind, get their energy going. And they're balancing out the body, the energetic body, the mental body. But really, what the searcher is searching for is the instinctual self, that sense of oneself within them. So the intellect goes looking for the instinct. The intellect goes looking for the instinct. Okay? So now, the simplest way to describe this, now the intellect looks at all the choices. So I have my thumb, my index finger, my middle finger, ring finger, my little finger. These are all my choices. What's my instinctual choice? What's my gut say? What one feels right? What one's drawing me to it, or being drawn to me? My thumb. Okay, that's the one I'm gonna go for. I'm gonna go for that first. So the intellect starts exploring all the choices and starts looking for the instinctual sense of choice and starts to follow that. Now, when you do this, it's not that you make that choice and then you take all your eggs and you just plop them all in that basket, because that would be a silly thing to do. So you do it in ways where you do it in simple choices, not big decisions, little decisions, in little ways that you start to practice. Look at all your choices. What's my instinctual that one? And then go for it and do that thing. It could be what am I going to do in the next 3 hours of my isolation. Will I go watch a bit of TV? Will I go for a walk, 2 kilometers? Will I have a shave? Whatever. shin or chin. So whatever it is, but you look at all your choices and you pick your instinctual choice and then go with that. So now the intellect is starting to recognize what its instinctual choice is. The intellect is starting to connect to that sense of oneself. Now, the more that happens is you get a connection and an alignment between the intellect and the instinct. And the more that alignment pathway opens up, is something will eventually awaken. Okay, and what awakens is the intuition. Intuition awakens. Now the intellect knows its instinctual choice. It knows that it knows. So now there's an awareness, an awakening of our gut and our intellect together, and intuition is awoken. Intuition wakes up. Does everybody understand? That's the pathway. That's the arc. That's the journey that everybody's on, and they're in that journey of it somewhere along the way, in that awakening of the third eye. Everybody understand? So now, have you got your third eye engaged? You know, are you activating in it? Are you searching? You know, are you not searching yet? You know, you don't need to search yet. Where are you within that? Is interesting question to ask. Okay, so let's go a little further. So we physically center, we energetically center in the breath, we mentally center, and that brings us into the moment. Now we're in the moment, and we want to become present in the moment. So what we begin to activate is the intuition of the moment. We know we're in the moment. Let's not think about it. Let's just be in the knowing of it. And when we're in the knowing of it, is now we're following our sense of what's right in the moment, the intuitive sense of what's right. Everybody understand? You're intuitively following your physical center of gravity. You're intuitively following the flow of your breath and the ease within it. You're intuitively following your senses, and you're seeing where it takes you in the moment, which is a really lovely practice to do. If that instinctual choice of yours was to go for a walk, is when you go for a walk, and just feel your body, feel the breath, just become aware that you're walking and all the things around you, and then just follow your senses, follow your awareness as it goes to places. So you might find yourself looking at a wall, or walking by a river, or looking at a tree. It's just allow your senses the freedom to just be, and you be in the awareness of it. And what you're doing is you're knowingly following your awareness, and you're just letting it be free in yourself. You're just opening up to that. So what you're doing is you're opening up to your consciousness, your awareness, and you're just letting it flow. You're not trying to tell it what to do. You're not trying to decide, is it right or wrong? And remember, you're getting back into the is of it, letting go of the rights and wrongs and the goods and bads. You're just allowing yourself to be. And you're allowing yourself to be present. And you're allowing yourself to experience your consciousness of being. And that's you beginning to attune to that awakening of your third eye. Now, I'm giving it to you very simple. In today's session, I'm explaining a lot. It's important that you have the overview. What is it? How does it work? Where does it fit in? Where does it fit into me? How can I begin to apply this? So there's a lot of setting up in this 6-week course that you got to get your basic understanding of all this, so that when we start to go through the steps more systematically, is that you understand the step you're on, you understand why we're taking the next one, you understand where we're going, and you understand all the reasons why we're doing one after one after one, because it all makes sense to you. And then we're putting pieces together as we go along. So it's a fascinating story. I'm going to add on another little bit. I'll tell you one more thing, and then we'll do a little bit of practice. And then I'll tell you some of the things we're going to cover next week. And believe it or not, that will be our 90 minutes over. So you're attuning to your consciousness within, your being. So you need a measure, a measurement. How do you measure your experience? Now you've attuned to your awareness needs to measure. You got to measure. How do you measure things, you know? So your consciousness of being, the awareness within, it needs to know. Knowing is your first measurement, to know. So think about this. To know is an experience. Now you might say, but know what? No, to know, to actually know. How do you know anything? You must understand the state of knowing, what it is to know. And then when you know what the experience of knowing is, then you can know things. I know that. I know this, I know that, I know this, I know that. But if you don't understand what it is to know, how are you going to know anything? Does that make sense? What are you going to stand over? What can you stand on? What are the things that you truly have embraced and become one with within yourself consciously, if you haven't awoken the knower? So you need to awaken the knower. Okay, and now that's part of the arc. The arc story is you got to find your knower. Okay, so let me tell you this story. I'll tell you how my knower awoken, and how it happened is one thing, but what happened is more important. It's the what of it, what happened, and then how it happened. So as I tell you the story, let's not get too caught up in that it's my story, but it's what happened, and then how, the steps that I went through. So I'm 4 years of age. I'm a breech yogi, by the way, which means like a breech baby. A breech baby comes feet first. I came feet first into yoga, not head first, feet first. So I came through. The philosophy was the first thing I started with, not the posture work. And then I also found yoga before yoga found me. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Is before yoga was ever found, because it was only found, the understanding of it was found. It was never invented. The truths of yoga are the truths of reality. So they're found. People find them. They don't create them. So there is no one originator of yoga, so to speak. You know, there's reference points, but there is no originator of yoga other than truth itself, is reality itself. So whatever that means to people, you can put many meanings on that. But when you bring it right down to raw philosophy, is you're looking at absolutes. You're looking at the reality as it is, without interpretation. Does that make sense? So now I'm 4 years of age, and I had somebody in my family pass away, and they passed away quite quickly. It was a motorbike accident. So one day they're there, next day they're not, and there was a couple of weeks where myself and my sister didn't know what happened, because we didn't go to the funeral. We weren't brought to the funeral, so we were told 2 weeks later that he passed. Yeah, so there was no sense of closure. As a 4-year-old, there's no, you see him in the ground, you go, oh, that's where he is, you know. So a little bit of sense of closure. There was no sense of closure. So this is the logic. Think about the logic pattern I'm gonna talk through. So I was told he's died. Okay. So I was like, okay, what does that mean? Well, he crashed. I said, okay. So and then he went to the hospital. I said, okay. And my logic was, now think about this, not just in this situation, just generally. My logic was, how can you walk into a room and not come out? How can somebody walk into a room and not come out? Made no sense to me, because I had no sense of depth. No sense of depth at all. So I was just flabbergasted that somebody could walk into a room and not come out. I was mystified, dumbfounded. Okay. Now I was a pretty intense kid, you know. You'll get it as I tell the story. So then it went on that my logic was, if he went into the room and didn't come out, well then where's he gone? I was like, where's he gone? So then I was told he's gone to heaven. I said, okay, he's gone to heaven. Okay. Well, that means he's gone somewhere else. So again, he's still not dead, you know, because I didn't know what dead was, it's just he's gone somewhere else. You know, so now there's a door that you can go through that you can't come back from, supposedly. So he's gone to heaven. So now he's somewhere else. So I said, well, where's heaven? You know, and after asking a bunch of times and, you know, pissing off the adults, one of them eventually said he's up in the sky, you know, and then I was like, how did he get up there? You know, so asking all these questions. So basically the logic is how can somebody walk into a room and not come out? Then how can somebody be in one place and then go to another? So then the logic was, if he was here and then he's gone elsewhere, if I'm here now, where was I before I was here? Okay, now that's a really important part of this. If I'm here, where was I before I was here? Because if I can be here and go elsewhere, well then the pattern is we go backwards. That makes sense too. So that really, now I stuck with these questions. I just kept going in and in and with the little intellect I had, is I just kept chewing these over. I'm very much using my instinct and a little bit of awareness I had. My intellect wasn't developed, but I had a strong awareness, a strong sense of awareness in myself, and I had a strong instinctual sense. I was driven by it. So I remember starting to try and figure out what I was. Because again, I'm too young for who am I? Way too young for that. But what am I was relevant, and I got all the answers of, you know, you're a son, you're a boy, you're a Roy, but very few answers. One day walking down the road, I remember to this day, it's the wall I'll always remember. I was walking on this little 2-foot wall, nice wide wall, Oscar Traynor Road, Garda Station wall. I was walking on the wall and I was so frustrated. I was trying to squeeze more questions about what I was, but I couldn't find any more. And then rather than asking what I was, it came to me, what am I not? And as I asked that question, I was looking at the wall. And I was looking at the wall and I answered very clearly with my heart and my soul, I'm not that wall. And I know I'm not that wall. I know what it is to know. My mind just blew open. It just expanded. I walked home. I'm not that car, I'm not that tree, that's firing off, I'm not all these things. And every time I was not one thing, it's almost the experience seemed to just get bigger and bigger. And what happened is that I learned what it was to know. And my problem with my family member passing is nobody could give me that assurity of knowing. There was no sense of security in the knowing of what happened and how it happened and where he'd gone. There was I didn't get that sense of assurity of knowing. And that's the one thing that I was looking for, is I needed to know. And I wanted that experience. So when I found the knowing, is the way I found it is not by asking myself what I am, is by asking myself what I'm not. And in that, I started to deconstruct. I started to take out all the things that I'm not. Everybody understand? Take out all the things that you can take out, and all you're going to be left with is the things you can't take out. They're permanent, they're constant. So I remember asking myself, as like maybe 6 or 7, I remember asking myself, you know, if my name is Roy is I can take that off, because I was given that name. If I can be here, if I'm here now, but I'm going somewhere else, and I was here before, well, I can take this body off. So I'm not this body. And I just started to strip everything away. And as I stripped everything out, is what I came to is the things I couldn't take out. And one of the things I couldn't take out is, within that knowing, it's the consciousness within it that I couldn't take out. And the more I stripped everything else out, the knower within me infused itself into that consciousness, because I just couldn't take that consciousness out. As much as I tried, it just wouldn't leave. It wouldn't leave. And I activated the knower within me. Okay, so that was me activating my third eye. Now, I didn't have a huge amount of self-awareness. I wasn't in the world. I wasn't in the world long enough to know the patterns and the rhythms of life to understand it, and I certainly wasn't intellectually mature enough. So it was a little like riding wild horses. It was like having one of those. You ever see those old Western movies where there's like 12 horses in a wagon, and it's running, going crazy, and somebody's just barely hanging on like this? That's what it was like for a good few life cycles, because it was just so intense. At that time, it would have been wonderful to have somebody who could guide me through that, but I sort of had to figure that part of my life out the hard way. So how did that happen? For the first 3 life cycles, as I grew into them, I deconstructed them. As I grew into them, I deconstructed them. So at the end of each life cycle is I would crash. I would crash in it, but I would also have a big awakening. So my sacral in my second life cycle, my creativity, my life force, is I centered myself in it. But again, it was the hard way. Is my third life cycle, again, teenagers, vitality, is a big explosion of vitality and power, coming into one's personal power. Again, I went high in it. So on my second life cycle, I was astral projecting. In my third life cycle, I was trance dancing. I was going into those higher states. A story for another day and a different chakra. So by the time I hit 21, I was like, oh, for Christ's sake, I'm crashing again. And I realized that there's a pattern to this, and that I will be ready for the next one. And I'd already gone through a lot of the philosophy and the advanced pranayama practice, advanced energetic practice. The one thing I haven't done is I've gone into the physical practice. So I started doing posture work, doing the physical yoga in my early 20s, in preparation for that next life cycle, because I'm gonna be ready. So, and I was very much on the fourth life cycle, about the heart, and I came into the heart of myself in that life cycle, and I came into the care of myself. So rather than deconstructing on my fourth life cycle, I constructed on my fourth life cycle. So by the time I hit 28, I became a yoga teacher at 28, and I started to teach yoga at 28. And then I went into the throat, is the wisdom, and I started to teach and explore that wisdom, the chakra, in my 28 to 35. And I started doing teacher training 4 years later. And then different life cycles moved on, and it's a story for another day. But you get the idea about the arc and tapping into the knowing of oneself, the intuitive sense of oneself, but then the knower has to awaken. So that comes in when you're willing to look at the way things are, and then what can be taken out. And if you start to take things out, what you're taking out is things that are not you. Does that make sense? And you're looking to find that sense of yourself that's constant. So the more you attune to the constant, is you can let go of the things that come and go. So as you center yourself, you become constant in that. And then as these different thoughts or moods come and go, you can start to decide, well, what's the part that is suffering and separated? I can start to let them go, and I can come back into the authenticity, the innateness, the instinctual self. But this time I'm going to do it with awareness. I'm going to awaken my intuition, and I'm going to know that I'm doing it. I knowingly am doing this. Does that make sense? Now, this is where it gets beautiful. That's the last bit of the story I'm going to tell you before we do a little bit of practice. I now know. Okay? What do you know? What do you got to figure out? We talked about this separation. What you're looking for is connection. How do you find connection? Well, you look for things that are new, something that you hadn't seen before. So as you're looking with awareness, the watcher, the listener, the feeler, you're doing what you normally do, but what's the thing in it that you see or notice or feel that you never noticed before? And as you start looking for new things, is what you're doing is you're beginning to see connections that you hadn't seen before. And when you see connections, how two things fit, where you didn't see they fit, and now you see how they fit, what you're seeing is connection. What you're also experiencing is insight. The knower is now looking at the known. You're looking at your stuff, what you know. So you're looking at what you normally do. And within what you look at, what you know, you're looking for new things. And when you see new things, now you're seeing insight. And as you see insight, you start to gather all that insight together. You start to piece it all together and you start to step into that insight. So now the knower is stepping into the insight of the now known. And as the knower steps into the known of connection, is it becomes the knowing. Is the person is stepping into the knowing of themselves. So the knower sees insight, knows the rightness of it, and keeps following that insight, stepping into the rightness of that known. And in that you're finding your knowing, is you begin to absorb into your authentic self, that constant self within yourself. And that knowing is the living wisdom of yourself. You're living the wisdom of yourself. And you're doing it with full awareness. You're doing it consciously. And you know you're doing it. So that's the third eye. I could tell you a lot more, but I think I've said enough for now. So you can get the journey that we're going to go on. So there are the practical steps. There's the practical steps of it that I'm going to tease out with you over the weeks. We do this, we do this, and we do this. I'll talk you through it. But along the way is you're going to have an experience. So as you understand the experience, then that's not practice. That's now experience. You're in the experience of it, not the practice of it. So you need to recognize that difference. I'm practicing this. Now I'm just in the experience of it. But you know what you're doing as you're doing it. So what does that mean? We'll do practices, but you now need to apply this to your everyday life. You need to apply it. You need to experience it. Don't just practice it, but bring it into your life. Explore it. And as you do, is what happens is that gives you new experiences, which is feeding you insight, which is going to feed you a story. And that story is your truth story. You want to begin to follow the experience of your truth story. And that all the practices that we do are giving you the tools to step into that experience and follow the truth story. And as you do, you're letting go of the hurt story. You're letting go of the hurt story. And again, the buffer, the ego, the personality, that it's important because it's protecting us. Now, sometimes that can imprison us in suffering, but it's done with the right intentions to protect. So we are not looking to destroy anything within ourselves. We're not looking to break anything, make anything wrong, hurt ourselves anymore. None of that is what you're looking to do, is free yourself, and to free yourself in a caring way, in a mindful way. So you got to understand, when you meet your suffering, you meet your hurt, it's part of your story, is what's the truth? Where's the connection in it? And you're the one that has to look for that connection. You can't beat yourself up for a part of yourself that's suffering, not looking for its truth, not looking for that connection. Because if you're hurt, you can get caught up in that. So you have to center yourself, and then you have to hold the space open to facilitate the story. And if the hurt story comes in, facilitate it so that you can see newness in it, see the insights, see the new parts of it, see where the connection is, and slowly start to step into that connection. And then that connection becomes your living wisdom. You begin to awaken the authentic story within you, your authentic being. So that takes time. That takes time. So don't be in a rush for that. Don't be in a rush for that. Let that play of life in you, let that play have its play. Everything in you is moving at a certain pace. You don't need to speed it up. Is let it work at its pace. And then within that, you move at its pace, recognizing its story and seeing it as it is. And then as you see the newness, you're just opening up the story more until you release suffering and you open yourself up into the connection, and you have these beautiful awakening experiences within yourself. It's not just one experience, it's a series of many experiences. So all those little awakenings is absolutely gorgeous. Wonderful sense of relief as the suffering goes away. That's a lovely thing to experience. And then there's the coming into that bigger space and that deeper connection. That's another lovely experience. Both are wonderful. Be willing to have both. They're intrinsically linked. Okay? So I'm saying a lot. Great stuff though. Great stuff. And we're setting up this course. So let's actually do a little bit of practice. Let's do a little bit of practice. And I think the one we'll do today is, and I'm mindful that there are people here who've a lot of practice, and there's other people who might be here for the first time. So you gotta bear with me. I'm going to start at the start, and I'll develop it as I go along. So if you're here and you know some of the stuff I'm going to take you through, enjoy it today. Is look for something new in it. There's always a bit of newness in it, and know that the journey we're on is the story being told of about activating the third eye. So you might go, oh yeah, I've done physical centering before. Yes, you have. But the story that's going to unfold from this starting point is the third eye. So while we're engaging with the physical center, the intention is to awaken the third eye. So how's that story going to be different than your other experiences that you're used to having from your physical center? And what you're doing is, again, it's the multidimensional nature of your center. Here's another pathway that my center is taking me. And again, now you're opening up to a new experience of your physical center. Okay, so what I want you to do is get comfortable. What I want you to do is sit in a position that you're sitting straight. So I need you to have and I'm assuming you're sitting on a chair. I need you to have yourself sitting on something that's reasonably firm, that you can feel your bum bones press down. And your pelvis your hips are stable. So I need you to sit back into the chair. So those two dimples on the back of the pelvis is that they're sitting and pressed against the back of the chair. So your hips are stable. And in that, it allows you to sit nice and free in your spine. Now, if you're more familiar with how to sit straight, if you know what you're doing, go for it. If you're not sure, that's what I need you to do. I need you to sit straight. Now, your legs and your feet need to be in a position that they're also connected, that your feet are planted. Okay, and then just let your legs be in a position that they're relaxed. Now, from there, let your hands rest on your thighs. Palms down, palms up. Doesn't really matter. So palms down as a start. Put your hands in a position that'll allow your shoulders to relax and stay open. So sometimes we can bring our hands too far forward and we're sitting with the shoulders rounded. Is put the hands in a position that the weight of the arm is coming down the side of the body rather than pulling at the front of the body. Okay, so now from there is what I want you to do is I want you to just ever so slightly sway just a little bit from side to side where you can feel your sit bones. It's like you're putting your weight a little bit on one sit bone and then you're swaying a little bit to the next sit bone. And that is just opening up that grounded connection between your body and the chair. And then start to make a little circle. So you're making a little circle where you're swaying around the sit bones. Your pelvis is still level. It's a small movement. It's not a big movement. And in that, you're just rolling around your center of gravity. You're going to start to feel the trunk of your body more. You'll feel the obliques, the side, your abdominals, maybe your lower back. You'll feel this sway in your spine, this sway in your chest and your rib cage, in your shoulders, your neck and your head. Now, let it be nice and even and fluid. And notice how you get to feel that tone and release in your body. You feel the pressure and then you feel a release. So when you sway to one side, that part of your body feels a little bit more pressure, but the other side feels a little release. Like a seesaw, as you sway from one to the other, is you're moving through that sense of tone and release. Now notice how relaxing it is. That when you do that, you're bringing your body into spontaneous tone. It's not right or wrong, it just is. You're coming into your physical center of gravity and you're spontaneously flowing around it. It's very, very soothing. If your back's a little tight, it's like a nice little needling massage. And then it releases. If you need your abdominals to tone a little bit, it's a lovely way to just activate them, bring a bit of awareness and tone to them. There's no strain. It's just a very soothing engagement. It's really, really nice, calming. Now, keep doing that. And what I want you to do is become aware of your breath. And notice the first thing you do is you inhale a little deeper. We all do it. When we think of our breath, the first thing we do is you take control of the inhale. So what I want you to do is be willing to slow your breathing down a little bit, just a little bit more. And be willing to tap the brake of your breath. Be willing to just keep it moving at a nice steady pace. And as you do, I want you to feel your breath move a little bit in your navel, a little bit in your rib cage, the intercostal muscles, feel them work a little bit, and then your upper chest. Now on the inhale and the exhale is feel the expansion and the contraction. Don't worry about the depth of your breath. We're just bringing a little bit of awareness into the breath, and we're beginning to move the lung. And we're moving all of the lungs. So by the time you breathe to the navel, the rib cage, and the upper chest, that little bit of movement in all three is you're activating your lung. You're not breathing your full breath all the time, but you're activating your full lung. But it's a nice tone and a release. So now you're beginning to open up your internal body, and you're beginning to massage your internal body with your lungs. So again, it's even more soothing. It's really nice. I'm going to get you to sync up your breath with your body. And what you're doing is you're syncing your physical center of gravity with your energetic center of gravity. So notice the pace that you're swaying at. It has a particular pace. I want you to now breathe that same pace. What's an easy way to recognize this? Look, you're swaying like a pendulum. You're breathing, inhaling, and then you're exhaling. So what I want you to do is sync up your sway and your breath, and they both move like a pendulum, and just have them move together. And I can exaggerate there so you can see is you're coming into that lovely inner sense of balance, that lovely flow of your breath. And notice the sensations in your body become more subtle as you get these waves of sensation. And that's your energetic body. That's you getting into your central nervous system a little bit, massaging it, massaging the muscles, massaging your joints a little bit, massaging your spine and your vertebrae. They release a little bit, takes the pressure off your nerves, and that releases the energy. And those lovely waves of energy is just your nervous system beginning to relax. You're engaging it, and then you're relaxing it. And again, very much you begin to activate the chakras as we go along on this. But for now, we're just establishing a baseline, a ground. Remember, we talked about measurements. We need to be able to measure our experience to know it properly. So we're finding grounds within ourselves to measure off. Physical ground, the energetic ground, now the mental ground. So now you're swaying. It's really nice. You can be eyes closed or eyes open. Doesn't matter. Once you're in the space, you're winning. So now what I want you to do is focus your awareness on the sway in your body. Focus your awareness on the flow of your breath. And notice how that lovely calming effect that you're experiencing also begins to experience itself at a mental level. You're probably already feeling mentally calmer. Now what's happening is the thoughts, remember the thoughts in the mind screen? The thoughts begin to move at a slower pace. The thoughts begin to move at a pace that allows your mental center of gravity to become aware. What I mean by that is your thoughts are moving at a pace that you can watch them, that you can hear them, that you can feel them, that they're not going so fast, that they're not fighting or struggling, that they're just spontaneously, like the muscles in the body, engaging and releasing. The sensations and energy in the body are engaging and releasing. And equally, your thoughts are engaging and then releasing. And they're coming into that fluidity. And you're allowing yourself to mentally center. So in that, notice how you're just watching. And you're just watching with a little bit more clarity. Things aren't right or wrong. They just are as they are. You're observing your center of gravity. You're moving through your center of gravity and you're watching yourself while you do it. You're feeling it. You feel it in your body. You feel it in your breath. You feel the sensations of it. And equally in your mind is that feeling is at an awareness level. You feel the rightness of your center. And then you're listening. And you're listening from that place of silence. So you just find yourself, part of the calmness in your mind is that silence that you're experiencing within yourself. You're listening from a place of silence, the listener. So now the listener is coming more to the fore. The feeler is coming more to the fore. The watcher is coming more to the fore. And it's just awareness itself. Now within that awareness, I want you to get a sense of that presence, that your sense of yourself and that presence of being. I want you to just sense it and allow yourself to just sway in the center of gravity in your consciousness of being, that sense of presence within you. And you're just centering yourself and you're doing it and you know you're doing it. You know that you know. You're aware of it. It's what you're doing, and now it's how you're doing it, and that's mindfulness. You're not just in it, you know how you're doing it while you're doing it. So you're in the mindfulness of your awareness and your consciousness of being. Now for a couple of minutes, it's just close your eyes and allow yourself to just absorb into your environment, whether it's your physical sensations in your body, the energetics, the thoughts, the awareness, the sounds in the room, the sounds in the building, the sounds outside the building, is just allow yourself to become aware of that spatial awareness. Now from your mind's eye, and I'm going to explain this very simply, when we close our eyes and we turn our awareness inwards, when we look in, is we are looking through the mind's eyes, like looking through it feels like we're looking from a place between our eyebrows. We get a sense of awareness there. That's why it's called the mind's eye. So again, getting a sense of that spatialness of your mind's eye, pick a sound. or pick a sensation, whether it's internal or external. It doesn't matter. Treat both as the same. Now I'm going to get you to use your intuition. As you listen to the sound or sensation, I want you to get a sense from where you are in your mind's eye, get a sense of the distance between your mind's eye and the sensation or the sound. So if you're listening to a sound outside the room, how far is it? If you're feeling a sensation in your body, in your mind's eye, how far is it? What's that distance? Now use your intuition. Whatever you think it is, that's what it is. No second guess. Just go with it. Whatever you think it is. Trusting your intuition. Now as you get a sense of that distance, what I want you to now recognize is that spaciousness in between. That lovely spaciousness. And as you recognize that spaciousness, notice how the knower within you is expanding into it. The knower within you, your intuition, is opening up into a greater sense of space. Now, pick another sound, another sensation, anything you want. This is an intuitive practice, so whatever you want. The sense of the distance, and whatever you think the distance it is, that's what it is. And as you recognize that distance, is then recognize the space in between. And again, take a couple of moments to just let yourself fill that awareness, fill that spaciousness. And you're just opening up your spatial awareness more. Okay. Now I'm going to get you to do that for another minute or so. Pick a sound, a sensation, a feeling, a thought. Some will be very close to you. Some will be in the midground. Some will be in the background. Sense of distance, beautiful space in between. Just that expanding consciousness. Just that expanding consciousness of being. You know that you know you're doing it. You know how you're doing it. And you know it. The knower is embedding itself, immersing itself in your consciousness of being. And as we ground ourselves into the knower, as we go along in this course, we'll start to look at exploring insight. As we explore the insight, as we step into it, we'll be stepping into the knowing. And that knowing of yourself is the wisdom. So when the knower moves into the known, and then the known moves into the knowing, the knower and the knowing become one. You get that beautiful merging, that beautiful connection. And as you come into the knowing of your third eye, the wisdom of your third eye, is then you really begin to start to see the patterns and the plays of life, how they all work. You just see it. It's just everywhere. You know, there's lots of stuff that's going on that's illusions and not real. And then there's the other stuff that's going on that is real. And you just start to see the pattern. And once you see the truth of it, you see the pattern everywhere. It's just the same pattern. Because as you activate the third eye more and more and more, is what you see, you just see everywhere. And you're activating the seer within you. So you've moved from the arc of the searcher to the pinnacle of the seer. You're just awakening the seer within yourself. That's the plan. So now, what I want you to do is gently come back into your body, into your breath. Let your eyes open if they're not already open. Bring back your everyday mind. And what I want you to do is some point in the very near future, which means this evening or today or tomorrow, whatever the time is, wherever you are, is go and play with the experience of this. Do a little bit of practice, but really enjoy the experience of it. It's the experience of it where you really bring it into your life. You know, and your practice will always nurture you, but it's your experiences where you really, it's like you take it off the mat, you bring it into your everyday life. So enjoy the experience, and thank you very much for tonight, and thank you very much for being here. And I really look forward to seeing where we go over the next 5 weeks. And after that, there'll be another course. So we won't stop. We'll keep going. For now, thank you.